Vibeflow is the only one platform that allows to create production-ready apps in no code. And how we came to the product, basically, the story is that we all were trying a lot of vibe coding tools, and 2025 is the year of vibe coding, in my opinion. So we were trying a lot of tools like Lovable, Bold, Replit, V0, and all these AI app builders. And we realized that they were super cool. They had this wow effect on the front end side, but on the back end side, they were really, really weak. And yes, some of them, like Replit, they were a bit better and they were offering already a bit more structure. But at the same time, when you are a non-technical person and you want to actually understand what's going on and you have code in front of you, you don't have the instruments to understand what's going on, right? So what people were doing was putting together different approaches, Lovable for the front end, N8N for the backend integrations, and then Supabase for the database. And this was a bit problematic because basically it enforced, forced people to have their applications between several platforms. They were not owning the full code of the application, and moreover, they had to take care of the integration layer, which is not super easy to do because imagine you have your backend in N8N, the front end in Lovable, and every time you prompt, everything gets broken again. Or you have to adapt the backend to your new front end, and it's not that easy if you're non-technical. So this is the issue that we're tackling with Vibeflow by putting all of this together. So it's an all-in-one solution that gives you the speed of AI, but also the reliability of no-code tools like N8N and the visibility over the backend, which is not a black box anymore.
Wonderful. Yeah, so the concept is super interesting. Of course, I've tried N8N, and it's difficult. It's quite complex, actually. They do make certain things easier in terms of having a visual front end, but in order to get something working that is any level of complex, it requires a huge amount of time investment. So when it comes to your product, how do you manage the complexity of something like a backend, which ordinarily is quite a lot of effort, both in terms of understanding and just using it?
Yeah.
How do you manage that?
Yeah. So first of all, N8N is complicated, but also you have to understand that N8N is not made for backends. N8N is made for workflow automation
Sure.
originally,
Yeah.
been repurposed for backends.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the first point. The second point is also that N8N, as I said before, is not providing the integration layer between the front end and the backend. So right now, it allows you to have the deployed backend, but you still have to take care of the integration between the two parts.
Mm-hmm.
And what we make seamless is really this integration layer, first of all. So we don't require the user to understand what needs to change in the front end in order to work with the implemented backend. And second, we have an agentic behavior over the flow, of course, that allows users to either manually tweak the parameters that we want to expose on the backend or chat with the agent and just rely on the agent.
Cool. And so say I'm using Supabase or Convex or something, similar for my backend. What would it be the differences and the benefits of using Vibeflow?
Yeah. So Vibeflow can be used both as a way to start your own project, so from scratch, or as a way to develop the backend starting from an existing frontend. So depending on your starting point, you have several options. Now you said, what is the difference between me writing actually a backend with Supabase or with Convex or using Vibeflow, right? I think it's if you write the backend, you know how to write code in a sense that you are technical or semi-technical now with all these tools like Cloud Code or Cursor. But still, you understand what code is, you understand what backends are, and you are able to move around with code. And I think this is the main differentiation point. We are targeting non-technical users that need to understand and need to maintain or develop or scale these vibe coded applications, and they don't have the instruments. Imagine business people. They don't know how to do that.
I
So
see.
target.
Yeah. So is your point then that something like Supabase is actually still more is more technical for most people? Like most people are not going to mess around with Supabase.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
if you want to get your hands dirty and just like touch the code, then of course you can use Cloud Code, you can use Cursor, and just
Yeah.
use Supabase, Convex, whatever you want. But if you are non-technical, it's a bit of a
Yeah. So I am seeing apps like Bolt start to offer integrated backends with Supabase as an example, and I think that there's some other similar services like that are they're starting to recognize the need for covering more of the full product lifecycle with vibe coding solutions.
Mhm.
So how does that shift or affect the need for Vibeflow?
Yeah. Um, it's really on the maintenance and the scalability side, I would say. So our vision is really to be the IDE for web coding, in the sense that with prompting, it's really, really hard to evolve your application, because a lot of times the problem with prompting is that you're stuck reprompting. And especially with backends, where you cannot even give the right context, because maybe you don't even have the language to express that. Imagine you're a non-technical person, you don't even know what the backend is, and then you need to prompt the LLM to do changes. How? It's really hard. While with the visual, people think visually. Everyone says that people think visually. So with a visual understanding of what's happening, you can even simulate the API endpoints and test the different endpoints, understand where the issue is, for example, and then provide the right context to the LLM.
Yeah, this is a critical point. So it's, what do you call it? A graph editor or node editor or node graph?
Yes, yes,
Any of
yes.
those kind of work?
I know
Yeah.
that it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the benefit of this for people that are unfamiliar with that concept is it is a visual representation on like a like a flow chart type of situation. If you've ever used like Miro board or
Yes.
FigJam,
Yes.
and essentially the different, you are representing the different aspects of what a backend looks like, how it works in different nodes that are connected to other nodes, and then you're able to tweak the parameters. And the benefit of doing that is what exactly?
The benefit is basically that you are able to um, edit the specific parameters of your backend
Mm,
without even needing to prompt the
I
LLM.
see. Yeah,
So imagine, like now everyone is implementing Figma style visual edits on the front end. This is the same thing on the backend side.
brilliant. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's great. I'm excited in terms of the concept to see that become uh more robust and usable. I mean, just at a conceptual level, it makes sense like why that would need to exist. So I want to hear a little bit about how you arrived at this concept. I understand, as most startup products, it was not your first idea. So tell me a little bit about what your journey was like to come to where you are today.
Yeah, I think our journey is pretty interesting, to be honest, because it varies a lot. So I have a background in computer science, and my co-founder Alessia, she has a background in data science and AI. I personally worked after my degree. I worked for a company here in Zurich, which was a company that had a software for 3D modeling, so 3D procedural modeling. So now I don't know if you're familiar with tools like Maya, Blender, or Unreal Engine, but they all have these node-based editors that allow people to basically create and use the softwares without the need to understand how to code, right? And this company had a custom programming language that architects were not really able to use, or they didn't want to learn how to use, right? So the good thing and the cool thing was that they gave me a blurb and they said, this is your product now, just bring it to production. And I kind of own the whole process and the whole pipeline of designing the product and then bring it to market release, which I mean allowed me to learn a lot about no code tools, and I had to do a job that was very similar to what we do with Vibeflow today, because we had to abstract the logic of the code and represent it in reusable components. So you have to understand what are the repeatable patterns, which you can find multiple times, and
Mm-hmm.
represent that as parameterized components. And this is a part that then we brought to Vibeflow today. But after working for this amazing company, because I had an amazing experience, perfect team, like really the perfect job you could ever imagine, I personally felt like I always had very big ambitions in my life, and I felt a bit like frustrated because I saw that I was not really reaching my ambitions. And so I decided to quit my job and go full in the startup world. I always personally did a lot of side projects on my own with different people. But I realized at some point that if you want to do something, you have to do it well, you have to do it fully. And so I just quit without any safety net, and I started just working 100% on the startup. What was a startup? At this point, nothing, because Elia, at the same time, she was doing another entrepreneurial program, which is called Entrepreneur First, program in Paris, and she was looking for a co-founder herself. But we both couldn't really find a co-founder that we matched with, because it's like a marriage. People talk a lot about how to find a co-founder, and it's sort of like a marriage. You need to like the person a lot, because you're going to spend all of your time with the person. And this is both on a personal level, but also on a technical level and on a way to work point of view. And I knew Elia because she was my friend from ETH, and I knew she had this hardcore mentality as I did. And I knew that she was technical as well. And to be honest, I don't think I can work with people that are non-technical, because today you need to be technical. You need to be able to build whatever you want to build. So I liked a lot of things about Elia, and at some point we realized we were just wasting our time trying to find a stranger as a co-founder, and we started
That's
working together.
funny. That's brilliant. So you were already friends and you were separately looking for co-founders and then realized that it just made a lot more sense to work together on the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what was that moment like where you realized you should just work together?
Well, it was a bit embarrassing at the start, because she was in Paris and she didn't really want to say, Ale, we should work together. And I also didn't want to say, because we were talking all the time and we were complaining all the time about not seeing anyone, and then at some point we're like, maybe we should really try to work together, because why not? And it was the right choice. But at the time, it was like last November. And at the time, we didn't start with Vibeflow. We didn't start with AI and dev tools.
Hmm.
So, the story there is that Alessia has an edge on biotech. Okay, so I'm generally a very curious person, so I get really like interested in a lot of stuff. So I'm very open. Biotech is not really my field, to be honest. I never did anything in bio, but she did a lot, and we found an opportunity which was really interesting, which was on the microbiome data analysis. It was a very different use case. It was a deep tech idea. We joined an incubator in Paris. We were in close collaboration with a pharma company. But at the end, we realized that it was super, super long. It was a deep tech idea. The market was not really ready for this kind of innovation. And so we decided to pivot. And it was a process of pivoting, which was super fast for us. So we validated problems and then moved to the next one when we realized that maybe we didn't like the problem, or the market was not big enough, and so on. And after a while, we realized that we were not really doing what we wanted to do. Like, we wanted to do something we were passionate about. Yes, we wanted to solve a problem for people, but we also wanted to do something that we were passionate about. And so we rethought everything. And this is how we arrived to dev tools and AI.
Cool. Microbiome, what was the concept there? Like, what were you trying
Yes.
to figure out?
So basically, I don't know what's your experience with
Help.
biotech. Uh,
Not a biotech, but I'm definitely very interested in health and wellness and
yeah,
biohacking, but not so
yeah.
much in the like technical aspect of it.
Yeah, so basically we wanted to provide additional insights in drug development based on microbiome data analysis, because there you can provide a lot of toxicology insights. Basically, you can analyze how a drug is going to be metabolized, if a drug is going to be metabolized or not, based on the bacteria that the person has in their gut. And it was super interesting. We talked to the best microbiome expert in the world. But at the end, we realized that it was still very researchy. So either you do a PhD on that topic and you have actually something that nobody knows about, then you can bring it to the market. Otherwise, it's not yet accepted by pharma companies or big pharma companies.
Yeah, I can imagine how doing anything in that space just has a tremendous amount of additional legal challenges and
Exactly.
complexity to bring that to market in a way that works. And yeah, to do a startup in that area compared to like anything I don't know related to vibe coding, there's the far more barriers.
Exactly. I mean, it's also a lot of regulation, and it's not an easy market.
Yeah,
And at the end, we wanted to do something faster and something that for us was a bit not easier, but just like came a bit more natural. You know what I
sure.
mean?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm curious. Just jumping back to when you said that you had left your perfect job. What
Hmm.
was that moment like for you? Were you scared? Like, did you have conviction? Were you uncertain?
I think this is very inspiring, at least from my perspective. How I felt was it was not easy at all. Like I worked for 4 years for this company, and especially like my family, I think they didn't really understand this point, because as I said, I had a good salary, a good job. I was even promoted, and they just told me, Alessia, what are you doing? Like, are you crazy? Uh, but I think personally, I'm very determined. I've always been very determined in my life, and I know when I don't feel good about something, it means that something needs to change. And I don't at this point. I was not even caring anymore about what other people thought. It was more about how I felt, and I felt like I needed to do this. And it was just like a jump in the void, but it was the moment where I really invested in myself. Like I believed I was the only one. I believed in myself, and I did it. And my boss, he was amazing. He was the best. He told me, do it. Like he encouraged me to do it. And I'm still talking to him. He's amazing. He was always super supportive. He was a founder himself in the past. So I think he
You
understood.
understood. Yeah.
Yes. But I think he was the only one that pushed me in that moment.
Well, that's good. Good for him. Did you at that point though? Did you have a concept that you were excited about, or you just it was more a desire simply to work on your own thing?
I spent 3 months before leaving my job doing consumer apps. And I didn't have fully a concept at the time, and I was doing this exercise with Elia about analyzing different markets where that we were interested in and finding problems there. That was the approach that we had, and validating the problems before starting anything. So basically, whether that was reading the whole internet or reading
Hmm.
Reddit, every Reddit, post, or talking, cold reaching on LinkedIn. I think we never took this amount of call as in that period for the microbiome idea, for example, because we needed to validate the problem. And the problem was huge, but the market was not validated, for example. So we invalidated the market by doing this. And but when I quit my job, that was not decised. It was not fixed.
Yeah, I had a similar moment in my life, not quite the same, but it reminds me when I started a company. I think I was 19 and I was still at in school. I was a junior at USC, and I had gotten into virtual reality. I was super excited about that about a decade ago, in 2014,
Hmm.
and we had started this idea of how can you use VR to tell stories, and we were super excited about it. And ultimately, I left. I made the decision to leave school to focus on this company, and we had raised a small amount of money. And so some of the details were a bit different in terms of we had already been working on this product. We had a small team, but the decision, of course, to leave school was still uh, definitely one of the bigger choice points in my life, and I'm glad that I did that. And ultimately, I never got my degree, but the company that we built, was quite innovative, and I'm glad that we were able to bring that to life and to offer it to people. So I know what that's like to you know follow your dreams and invest in yourself. So good job on that. Taking the leap is definitely, it's not for everyone.
No, and it feels super good when you do it. Like you feel in control of your life and you feel free. I think that that's the definition of freedom. And but on the other side, so you mentioned, did you have any idea on what to work on? Well, to like in my opinion, I am a very creative person and I always loved creativity and whatever allows people to be creative. So personally, I did my whole master in computer graphics. So when you mentioned virtual reality, I love it because I also did projects there, and it's I think it's super cool. But yeah, I'm a very creative person, and I always knew that I wanted to do something that allowed people to be creative. And that's also why, like, the microbiome idea, yes, I was interested in it, but at some point it didn't really feel right because it kind of blocked my creativity. You know what I mean? And with Vibeflow
Mm.
instead, I'm full on creativity because I can allow people to do whatever they want.
Yeah, I resonate with that a lot. That's that the word creativity has been a huge theme in my life and career, something that I value a lot in just whatever work that I do, and in particular with the projects, the companies that I've created. Mindshow, which I just mentioned, which was the startup that I left school to create, was all about empowering people's creativity through 3D animation and helping people tell stories using VR. And then the following project, similarly, MovieBot, was a mobile app that allowed people to again create 3D animation using AI, all about facilitating new ways for people to express their creativity. So I appreciate that you care about that as well.
So it was like a cursor for creating shorts.
Well, cursor was not really a thing at the time, but I guess you could compare it to that. I mean, I wouldn't. That's not really the direct comparison that I would use, but yeah, the premise was we used GPT 3.5, I believe was what was available at the time, and so you could put in a prompt and just like an idea for a story, and then select from different characters in a world and different voices for each character, and then hit a button, and it would generate the whole thing for you and bring it to
Render,
life. What's that?
like a render scene.
Yeah, yeah. So using Unity, it was all 3D game engine based in Unity, and it was brilliant. It was the fastest way that I'm aware of still today to like go from nothing to having a comedic, entertaining video in just a couple minutes or less. And what was neat about it too is, especially compared to the very early generative video products at the time,
Mm-hmm.
which were all just giving you some like kind of crappy rendered mess. Our vision was like, if it was in Unity in a game engine, everything was editable and controllable and remixable.
Yeah,
So
that's super cool. Like
thank
you were
you.
taking the wireframe basically, and then you were allowing people also to control the generation, right?
Yeah, yeah. So the flow was like you would create the video with a text prompt and then watch the video and you can share it, but then you could also edit and go into the world of the
Wow.
scene that was created for you, and you do edit the lines, change the characters, change the world. And so the vision, which we didn't get to do because we were unable to raise money a couple of years ago. This was in 2023,
Mm.
was having like a world of these remixable uh short interactive movies.
Yeah,
So
super
really kind of merging like this concept of like a movie with a video game, and having maybe like a social network, kind of like Roblox, but more oriented around storytelling and multiplayer movie making with friends was the idea.
super cool. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun. It was definitely unfortunate and difficult that we were not able to like continue with that. But
But you did
um,
the product, right? Like you did develop an MVP, or what was the stage
yeah,
there?
yeah. I mean, we brought it to market. People were using it. People loved it, and it was quite fun and funny to use. It was really like leaning into just absurdity with the character style. It was really kind of just like silly and goofy, and we had a lot of like parodies of characters that you would definitely recognize.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and uh, yeah, it was always like, the scripts that were created were just typically intended to be just, to make you laugh. And the voices in particular as well, really leaning into the, um, not cheesy necessarily, but just kind of like memeable was the
Mm-hmm.
style that we were going for.
Yeah. And is it
Yeah.
online or you shut it down?
It's not available anymore, but if you're curious, and for those listening and watching, if you just put in MovieBot into YouTube, you can find some of the examples. But anyway, I'm curious. I want to just going back to,
Mm-hmm.
your story.
Yeah.
Um, so you were friends with Elia and you started working together, and then tell me about, so how did you get into YC? I know that's, I guess, a more recent aspect of, your startup journey. That's a huge deal. Tell us about like what YC is for those maybe not familiar, and how you came to apply, and just that whole process.
Yeah. I mean, YC, for those who don't know, is the best incubator, the best startup accelerator in the whole world. And YC gives you basically 500,000 in fundings in pre-seed, with a batch of 2 months where you have to move to San Francisco and you're in contact with your batchmates, which are also YC companies. And they give you a lot of support from coaching point of view, like you have your partner, and you also get the chance to be in to have basically a pace during these 2 months, which is impressive. They give you a lot of visibility. They allow you to do YC launches, which also give you a lot of visibility. And they put you in contact with also very good investors, of course. So the whole program is organized sort of like this. You start at the start, you have this like kickoff event where you meet all of your batchmates, and then after that, for the next 2 months, you have some events with very impressive people that are maybe founders of huge companies like Brian Chesky, for example. Or yeah, you have these events like the talks of Paul Graham, and so on. And then you have every week an office hour either individually with your partner, your YC partner, or group office hours with a set of companies in a similar space as yours, always with the same YC partner. So you get support, you get events, and then that's basically it until demo day, which is the closure of the program, where you pitch. You have a 1-minute pitch in front of a lot of investors, and this is how the program ends. So how we got into YC? Well, first of all, it was not the first time that I applied to YC. I applied before, but it was always in a situation where I still had my job. I was not full in. I had other co-founders that also were not full in, and YC doesn't like that. YC likes when people don't have safety nets, they are fast, and they are willing to put their whole life in the startup, which is totally reasonable now that I see it from the other side, to be
Mhm.
honest. I would I would be more willing to invest in people that don't have a job and they are fully dedicated to the
Sure.
startup, rather than people that are working on something part-time. So this is one thing. Was the third time for me that I applied to YC. And the process is very easy. It's just a form that you need to fill out online, and you have to show a demo of I think around 3 minutes, where you show how the product works, and then you do a co-founder video where you present the team, and that's mainly it. So the application process is pretty fast. What they look for in the applicants is a strong technical team, a team which is also strong from a bond point of view, in the sense that if you just found your co-founder a couple of weeks ago, that's not well seen. You need to know your co-founder personally for a long time, and you need to have worked with your co-founder in multiple situations, because this shows the strength in the team. And then they also, of course, look for ideas that are scalable and that can grow fast. And founder market fit, I think, is also a point that helps, because if you work again on a market or on a use case where you have zero expertise, then it's going to be much slower for you to learn about the market and to be the best in that, right? So they look for all of these things. But at the end, some people manage to get in with an idea that YC doesn't like, because mostly they invest in teams.
And so, okay, so the program is over now, right?
Yes, now it's over, and now I'm in Zurich, which doesn't have the same good weather as San Francisco.
So, I mean, what was it like to participate in YC? I mean, not everyone gets to do that. It sounds
Yeah,
like
it
quite
was
a fun,
amazing.
challenging time.
Had the best experience of my life. It was I got to meet like so many good people, um, to learn so much about what the others were doing. I think that the learning curve was very steep, but it was super dynamic, and YC gives you the best resources that you could ever get. So for me, it was the best experience of my life, and I would do it again.
Wow. The best
Easily.
experience of your life.
Yes.
Nice. Did anything surprise you about participating in it?
I think just the fact that, of course, most of the time you're closed home working um, with your co-founder in front of a screen. That's it. But this is also part of the experience. I think it's you know it's a way to build up your team in a way that you didn't before, because you're super stressed. You're under time constraints. You need to perform, and you need to, like, you cannot waste time. So you are in a situation that I think it's really hard to put yourself in if there is not someone like YC forcing you to do. And yeah, but it's part of the experience. And to be honest, it's crazy. Like, I think it's a one and a half experience unless you repeat Y Combinator another time. But if you do repeat it, I think still the first time that you do it, you are a bit naive, and you do it with a different mentality.
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, 2 months is not a lot of time at all
Yes.
to do anything in general.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
exactly.
I can see that being um both kind of like a fun challenge but also pretty stressful.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And so now, so that's done, and you know, got some money through that, and you have your product in the market. And how are people responding? Like, what are you up to now with the product, and what are your current challenges?
Yeah. So right now, what we are doing is basically, finally we have a bit more time to, find focus time again. Now we are hiring some people. We are enlarging the team, and mostly we are iterating with the users and with the customers, basically, to listen to what they need, and respond to what they need. And this basically for us means mostly integrations and UX for the product. So right now, the product allows you to have specific features like database and AI agent, now authentication, HTTP requests. But of course, we want to be able to to learn from our users and understand what they are missing and work for that. So that's the main priority right now.
Yeah, I saw that you were number one on Product Hunt, which
Hmm.
was amazing. So
Yeah, to be
congratulations on
honest,
that.
I think,
People are going to want to know like how you accomplished that, because I'm sure many
yeah,
people listening are like, "Oh, Product Hunt is interesting. It's because, you know, great place to launch something." But how did you actually do that?
yeah. I think honestly, it's a process of you need to post a lot. And me and Delia, we have this good virality thing that just works in the sense that we got a lot of visibility and a lot of impressions on LinkedIn. Um, I think it's because of like we have many factors that contribute into this virality. Um, but at the end, it's all about consistency and product hunt. To be honest, I think people are very attracted to vibe coding tools and to new solutions. I think our solution is very unique
Uh-huh.
because nobody is providing the angle that we're providing, and people are very curious about it. And so when we did prepare our teaser for the product hunt launch, we had a lot of subscribe people before. So usually when you prepare your product hunt launch, you need to prepare this teaser with an image that can attract people, and people can subscribe and they get the notification afterwards when the product hunt launch is out. And for us it was very funny because without planning it, we kept postponing the launch because of some things that we wanted to add to the product.
Mhm.
And at the end, by postponing it, we gathered many more followers that were waiting for the product launch,
Nice.
and at the end it worked.
Yeah. So you said you have a lot of virality factors. Can you
Yes,
be more specific? Like what is that? What do you mean by that?
I think we are good communicators, and people resonate a lot with our story in the first place. So when we did communicate our story, our posts got a total of 10,000 likes without
Wow.
without really putting too much effort into it. It was honest and
Nice.
honest post about us telling our story and our the process that brought us to our success. Okay, people want to hear that you're giving them the dream, and without even making it on purpose. Because to be honest, I was saying that just because I wanted to share my experience to for people to understand that it's not an easy process. Like if it's easy, then everyone can do it. It's not easy. You have to be resilient. You have to continue doing it. You have to be determined. Otherwise, nobody is gonna do it for you. And by telling this story, I think people really resonated with the journey. And by doing that, we have a lot of fans right now that just support us and they want us to succeed. And
Yeah.
then, of course, this is on one side. On the other side, as I said, it's all about the unique approach of the product. I mean, we're bringing an approach which to me is not what you see every day. Like you see these vibe coding tools that are just growing like mushrooms around, and for us, it's a different approach.
So why do you think people are so interested in vibe coding tools?
Because it gives you the possibility to do anything that you want without making the effort, too much effort, right? So everyone is lazy. Me, like everyone uses cursor, cloud code. It's normal. Like it's not even engineers, right? Like I worked as a software engineer. I know how to write code, but still sometimes I want to be lazy and and use these tools because it makes sense, right? It just speeds me up so much. But at the same time, I realized that me by being technical, I always have to really understand what's going on with these tools. I always need to understand what they are exposing. A lot of times LLMs just expose vulnerabilities and they create unsecure code, which I really don't want. So I'm kind of the responsible engineer. But generally I think the reasons are that people are lazy and they want to do things fast.
Fair. Yeah. I resonate with that. Yeah. The promise is magic,
Yes.
right? Like you can make whatever you want. And that's how I feel is like, I have an idea and now I theoretically could make that. Now, there's definitely still a significant gap between having something that I'm excited about making and actually having it work and tangible and be available in the market as I'm discovering. I mean, my challenge is focus and getting excited about a new idea and starting to make it, but then that takes time away from something else. Now, for you, in your case, you have a company and you've raised money, so it's like there's a very real responsibility to like stay focused on that. So I'd imagine that is maybe less of an issue for you. But I guess I should ask, like, in the world of vibe coding, like, do you also have time for just like experimenting with other ideas or projects, or do you just don't really mess around with that because you're working on your own product?
I mean, I literally have no time to do anything,
Yeah.
sleep or anything. So I lost all my friends. I no, like I don't really have time to experiment with other
Yeah.
things, but I do experiment with the ideas that I have for the product, and this helps a lot. Like having tools like Cloud Code or Cursor helps a lot when I have to experiment with like a prototype or just like an MVP or something that I want to test an idea. Then I do it, and I have the immediate prototype in front of me, which works. And to me, this is magic.
Yeah, so I'm curious, do you also use, I would imagine you vibe code your own product too?
Yeah, I mean, of course.
Yeah, and so are you mostly using Claude Code or other things?
Yes, Cloud Code is the best.
Okay, yeah, I used that for a while. More recently, I'm using the Codex in the plugin.
Mhm.
in the IDE. I found that to be quite nice. I'm curious to get your take on just like vibe coding in a broader sense. And, you mentioned that it's people like to be lazy, which I agree with, but I think that there's something more to it. And beyond just like people being lazy, like there's something, earlier you mentioned creativity and valuing that. And
Yeah, I think it depends on the target, to be honest. Like, it depends on the target. If you are a programmer, then you probably use these vibe coding tools to be faster, and because sometimes you're lazy and you don't want to read the whole documentation of a specific library or whatever, and you do it. And for me, this is fine. But on the other side, there are people that really are non-technical and they want to be able to do something, and they don't have the instruments to do that. By with vibe coding, you allow them, you unlock this new possibility for them, and this to me is magic.
mm,
On the other side, though, it's really important that they also know what they're doing when they want to use these kind of applications in production. And this is why, like, this is one of the principles of Vibeflow, because in the moment that non-technical people start programming without knowing really what they are doing, in the UI, they have immediate feedback. On the backend side, they have zero feedback. And this brings a lot of problems, especially if you're a company or a business and you're trying to, you know, just grow your business on top of these tools.
yeah, there is definitely a bifurcation in the audience as it relates to vibe coding, which is technical versus non-technical.
Mm-mm.
And I think that vibe coding certainly can apply and be useful for both audiences.
Mhm.
But I found that to a certain degree that the more experienced programmers are more skeptical of vibe coding. Now, I mean, clearly, like you're doing it, you're interested and excited about it, but that seems to be in my limited experience less common. Have you found that like more non-technical people are interested in vibe coding?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, both of the teams are interested. But as I said before, like, I always read what the LLM generates. Like, I always want to understand fully what it's generating. When I do a commit, I need to understand exactly what I'm doing, right? So
Yeah,
I never trust the LLM, and based on feedback, no, but it's true. And based on the feedback that I got from all the users that I talked to, more technical people tend to have more trust issues with LLMs as well.
of course.
I agree with what you're saying. And this is, by the way, also one of the point of Vibeflow, the fact that we allow the LLM to create these workflows, but at the end, the code generation is deterministic because each node maps to code. And by doing this, we avoid hallucinations of the code.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I'm laughing because I'm the opposite. I just prompt and hope that it works and don't look at the code unless like there's like a very specific tweak that I need to make.
Yeah, I have
But
to make trust issues too.
yeah, I mean, it's just coming at it from like a very different perspective. Because like for me, I have some experience with coding and like I've taken classes, and so like I know what it's about like in more of a general sense, less of like from an experienced developer perspective.
Mm.
But the brilliance for me and the excitement is like I can, as a single person and more like from a design perspective or product designer, make my own apps. And the challenge is on the flip side. Okay, like I can use AI to make projects, but I don't actually know really how it's working, and so that's there's a lot of tech debt and overhead there when something doesn't work or I need to add something, and it's like just hoping that the AI can figure it out. It doesn't always get it. Often it takes a lot of effort.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, like, you just spend so much time trying to make the LLM understand, and you get also mean or just angry. And in the end, it would just be so much faster to go into the file and change it yourself.
Totally. Yeah, no, it's a funny thing where like you want to make a simple change and you can prompt it and if with a natural language like and it generally does work, but yeah, if I know specifically where in the code is necessary to make that change myself because I had originally created it myself, that would be way faster. But
Yeah.
I'm curious to get your take on like the logical progression of this type of process and technology, maybe a couple years into the future or 5 years into the future, whether that's specific to Vibeflow or not. Like, how do you see this progressing?
I think it's I mean, right now I don't think that LLMs are, even if they become good enough, let's say, that they don't hallucinate anymore. Still, I believe that this is not in the near future gonna happen. And
What's
I
not going to happen?
good backend good backend generation without hallucination, for example, coming from LLMs. I don't think this is gonna be the reality in the near future. First, second, I don't think that trusting fully an LLM without having control over what's happening is gonna be the reality, because because of what we discussed until now. So it's gonna be a good accelerator of software development for sure, but it's not gonna be um, people are there. There is always gonna be a human in the loop. You know what I mean? Like there is always gonna need to have. There is always gonna be the need to have a human in the loop to control what is happening. At least in the next
Yeah. I
uh,
I agree. I agree with that in the near term. I think it really just depends on what time scale we're talking about,
yeah.
and it's hard to say precisely when that would happen, but it seems like for sure, like I completely agree that that will be the case maybe the next 5-10 years. But
Mhm,
like if you just logically play it out, assuming that LLMs get better and like the underlying technology continues to improve and become more
mhm.
accurate, etc., that the need for human oversight in the creation, at least of like so most software products, will become less
So
necessary.
what is your vision over the what's gonna happen in the next 10 years? Like, what is the reality
Uh,
in companies?
well, so this is something that I spoke about. I mentioned we had our um, first meetup near the Vibe Coding New York City meetup a couple
Mhm,
days ago, and this was something that I started to think about. You're familiar with like Liquid Glass, the software UI paradigm from Apple that came out pretty recently. I think that principle can apply more in the broader sense of like liquid software and
mhm,
dynamic software, where so this is getting like much more into the like far future. This is not totally possible. This is not possible today, but just
mhm,
think, seeing something like Genie 3,
mhm,
which is Google's, large world model and their ability to, simulate worlds using AI. I think a similar concept could apply to just software in general, where instead of having a individual or team of developers have to figure out all the different features and architecture in advance and then submit that to an app store and then people download and open it on a grid of icons. I think that perhaps in the future it would be more of like a software as a simulation and a collaboration and a conversation with AI, where you can imagine something maybe like chat GPT voice mode where you're talking to this AI. I mean, the voice quality today is phenomenal. Like, right.
mhm,
It basically sounds real, and they're continuing to improve that. And but that's more of a side note, but more so like if the output of or result of that communication could be entire apps would be amazing. But maybe even like this is kind of a crazy idea, but maybe they're not like maybe the apps are not apps in the sense of like having to like I don't know precisely how this would work, but maybe they don't need um code files perhaps. Like maybe they're just like rendered or simulated maybe not rendered but like generated experiences closer to like what Genie 3 is showing us, where you could create entire worlds just with AI.
mhm.
Maybe at some point in the future software could be like that. So that's what I was talking about in the presentation, and that's an interesting idea of like where software could go in the future.
Yeah. And it's
What do you think?
now there are agents doing PRs, code reviews.
Hmm.
I mean, it's hard to anticipate also what's gonna stick to the real industry, because at the end the industry is very slow to adopt new solutions. And what I've seen in the last 3 months of Y Combinator is incredible, and I'm living in a reality which feels like super advanced in the future. But then I look around in the companies that I know and what they use, and they're not like they're very like deprecated in a sense. So yeah, it depends also on how fast the industry moves in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm talking about is not really a near term thing, but just kind of putting the pieces together and seeing what's available today. I think something along those lines could be
Mm,
possible.
mhm.
I'm curious. So, I want to touch on you. You had some work as a student in deepfakes, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it was my master thesis, and I was working on improving the generation of deepfakes to make them higher resolution. So basically, there were some good models. And they were generating from a few shots of a face, a whole deepfake. But the size of this deepfake was super tiny. It was like a stamp like this, right? 256 times 256, I think. And what I did in the whole thesis was basically using the same architecture to have a few shot generation of entities, basically like I don't know, I did a lot of videos for Trump or Biden because they were the US elections, but also like
Hmm.
anyone like me, for example, which the models are not trained on, and making sure that the generation was high resolution. So we wanted to do, as I told you, I'm very creative, so the whole idea was to do an art exhibition. And it got actually accepted into a film festival in Geneva back like in 2022. It was a whole artistic exhibition of an artist that wanted to do this representation of a person that was coming into the exhibition. She was doing maybe like psychology test, so answering some questions. And then the model was generating 5 different deepfakes on the run of the person at the exhibition, so just from one single photo, saying controversial stuff that the person would have never said based on the psychology test. So it was, I really liked it. It was something really cool, and yeah, it worked out.
Interesting. Are you saying that you were creating deepfakes of the like the audience member that would show up?
Exactly, yes.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
So
Wow.
it needed to be fast, and it needed to be
How
high
interesting.
resolution because we were
Yeah.
displaying it in these like huge screens.
I remember seeing deepfakes for the first time around maybe 2017 or so, and it was one of the first times where like I experienced the power and the like uh challenge and like the fear of AI. And it was sort of rudimentary but still compelling, and it was like, oh, I can see how this could be both like really useful but also very dangerous. And since then, of course, that was like 8 years ago, so almost a decade,
Mm.
of
Yeah.
progress, and it's gotten significantly better and higher quality and probably easier to make. Um, how like what are your thoughts and feelings on both like the positive use cases, but also the dangers of deep fakes?
So my mom would tell you that she's super scared about what's happening and it's crazy, and then at the end she doesn't realize that all of our kids are working to improve these models, and they're because I have 2 brothers and they're both doing something similar, so we're all working on the same topics basically. But I personally I get very excited by technology improvements, and I don't know, like I have, of course, you have to pay attention, but if you do research on these kind of topics, you also know what the risks are, and you are able to not get scammed or not believe, you know, when something gets displayed in front of you, when it's maybe a video of a person that you know saying something that is not true. So to be honest, I just think like the only weapon you have against this is to study and be expert on these tools, and yeah, uh, that's gonna give you less trust issues in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as a technologist, I'm always interested and impressed when I see things like that are just like technically impressive. Um, the ability to seamlessly replace someone's face and voice is like, wow, that's so cool. Like you're able to do that. Yet at the same time, I think that, culturally and socially, that type of technology specifically can be very dangerous. And I'm sure like it's not like it's kind of an obvious thing to say, but like when we personally and as a society cannot trust what we're seeing ever, right? That puts us in a weird place where, like, I guess in a
But it's
less
already
scary way.
think
Yeah,
about movies, think about 3D renderings, think about like there
sure. Well, yeah, I mean, you can, of course, like you can say you can animate anything to look real, but the point is like when the technology becomes so accessible and high quality, there's a threshold there where it it starts to I don't know, I guess just like in the wrong hands, it poses risks that were just previously not available or not possible. And
like do you have practical examples that worry you? Because for me, it was
yeah.
only about the fear of being framed for some whatever fake, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's at least in a practical sense, it's more of an abstract concept of like the risks. I mean, of course, you hear a lot or like read posts about like the elections and politics of like he didn't actually say that, or certainly people being scammed, especially older people that don't understand how this technology works or the fact that it even exists, right? That we've arrived at a point, and this is not really new, but like we've arrived at a point where you can essentially make someone say something or look a certain way that is just not true, but it looks real. It looks and sounds completely real. And there's this term reality collapse that I think is an apt description for that, where we just don't know what is real anymore, and so our ability to make progress as a society potentially is hampered in that like there's no shared reality because it just anything could be real and anything could be fake at any time. And a good example of this is not quite deep fakes, but like have you seen Meta's new Vibes platform with Meta AI?
Mhm.
Do you have any perspective on this?
What is your perspective on it?
Um, I don't know. I feel two ways about it. So Meta, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, they shared a new like social feed platform within the Meta AI app, and it is basically a feed of AI generated videos that look pretty high quality. They're using Flux and Midjourney,
Mhm.
and it's as a Midjourney fan and supporter, like I think it's cool that they're getting integrated in this broader sense to way more people than have ever seen their art before.
Mhm.
And I feel two ways about it. I love generative art, photos and videos. Like it's super cool. I'm impressed by it. I like using it. Yet, people online, the response to this on X has been super, super negative. They're just completely getting roasted by a lot of people. And I think the specific concern is that it's not so much like the generative art part itself is not really the issue. It's more like the context in which it's being used with Meta. People don't trust Meta. They have a trust issue, generally speaking.
Yeah.
And I think that could be said of like anything that they come out with. So it's not just like this vibes app, but anyway, so the context that is being used to like basically at some point sell you more ads or show you more ads and like get you addicted to this like new form of AI generated content. I tend to agree with that. I mean, that it is a bit concerning. That on the other hand, like I am a bit conflicted because like I also kind of think it's cool and I kind of think it like the art itself is interesting, like to be able to see videos that were just like never possible before. Like for example, like the talking babies stuff and like there's like cool, funny, interesting things that are now possible today that weren't possible before. So from that perspective, from like a art and creativity perspective, I think it's neat. Yet, yeah, like do we need like more? Like, do we need like an infinite slop machine, as people are
You know
saying
what?
online?
You know what I think is I really like all these tools because they allow me to do stuff maybe that I don't yet know how to do. But what I don't like, I'm gonna tell you, is the fact that they imagine, for example, music creation, right? Like now you can just create music even if you don't know anything about music. You can write a song even if you don't know literally anything about music theory. And what I don't like is that it's so accessible that you don't really need to be specialized anymore. You don't really need to go deep into stuff anymore. And I am a person that always goes deep into stuff. So personally, if I have like I love to do that, but if I have a shortcut, it's harder, right? Because you say, why am I doing this if I have a shortcut? So these I don't really like because I think it puts us in a mentality where everything is doable by everyone. And this is also why I'm proud that I studied when ChatGPT was not there. So I had to fight and
Yeah,
understand everything about algorithms and math and like, everything before ChatGPT was out there because it allowed to train my mind and my brain to do the effort. Otherwise, it's just so easy that you're not even able to think with your
yeah.
brain.
Well said. Yeah, you had to actually use your brain.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
there's this interesting polarity with AI in a broader sense, and this can apply to generative art or vibe coding, where AI changes our relationship with time. It makes things that used to take hours, weeks, months now in minutes or seconds. And so
Exactly.
we can get more done, we can be more efficient, but what we're losing when we're gaining efficiency is having to actually engage our brain in the process, and we lose out on the learning of whatever it used to take to actually get that task done before AI existed. And so when we create these videos in the vibes example specifically,
Mm-mm.
it's like, okay, I can make something that looks interesting and is maybe beautiful and funny and interesting, but I didn't actually do anything myself really to contribute to the creation of that video. And so there's this really kind of unsettling gap that I've experienced in the time that it takes for you to produce an image or a video and the complexity and beauty of that piece of content. It's a strange thing that's never existed before, and now it's on hyperdrive with this vibes experience that Meta is putting out there. And yeah, I mean, totally empathize why like people don't are just not into that. They're not down for that.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. It's a bit
Yeah.
of a
Well, um, yeah, I think that this is probably a good place to wrap up. This has been uh, a really enjoyable conversation. Where can people find out more about you and your work and anything else that you want to share?
I think on maybe on Twitter and on LinkedIn. These are the main social where I post.
Hmm.
I'm a heavy user of Twitter, so I'm always there. Yeah, that these are the main social.
Cool. And what's your handle?
So it's Alessia Pacca. So my name and the first letters of my surname.
Okay, cool. And your domain for your website if you want to check that out.
The website is vibeflow.ai, and then they can find the link to the app.
Cool. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us on me on vibe coding. This has been great. For those that want to listen and learn more about vibe coding, you can go to vibe-coding.fm. And if you haven't already, definitely make sure to subscribe for more podcasts like this. Until next time, we'll see you soon.